Now, today's Focus Report takes us to Afghanistan, where the National Unity Government could soon face a political deadlock. As part of a power-sharing deal, the government was supposed to introduce several ambitious reforms before its two-year anniversary this Thursday. But simmering tensions between the country's president and chief executive have derailed the plans and are threatening to tear the National Unity Government apart. As our team on the ground reports, the Taliban have made the most of this political instability.
Two men vying for the same position. Speaking here is Abdullah, a sort of Afghan prime minister, but without any real power. And lurking behind him like a menacing shadow is President Ashraf Ghani, a member of the Pashtun majority. Since coming to power in 2014, the two custodians of the Afghan government have been in a state of undeclared war with each other.
The other politicians, all those intelligent men, believe we don't care about the government. They wonder why we do not solve our problems once and for all.
Abdullah embodies the minority Tajik and Mujahideen fighters. Anger is brewing in their ranks.
Long live the Mujahideen.
Let me speak. I came to speak from the heart.
They feel marginalized.
Don't worry, I will say positive things, but let me speak.
Calm down, sit down, please.
Even the brother of the late Commander Masood, a figure of unity, does not hesitate to criticize the government, which is mired in clan wars.
The problem is not the people. The problem is not something from outside. The problem is the government here. The government does not function.
The two men in power took nearly 1 year to appoint a defense minister and an intelligence chief. Disturbingly, that same year, the Taliban grew to be more powerful than it has ever been since 2001. One man was accused of fueling discord, former President Hamid Karzai. Now retired, Karzai ruled the country for 13 years and remains extremely influential.
This is my library.
Some people say that you're trying to destabilize this government.
No. I'm trying to stabilize this government by asking them to do the right thing. The fundamental and most important one is holding a Loya Jirga to determine the form of government.
The Loya Jirga, an Afghan tradition, is a meeting of the elders in Kabul. But without electoral reform and because of the insurgency, holding the Loya Jirga is nearly impossible today. Hamid Karzai is playing a murky game. Once he waged a long battle against the Taliban, but today his criticism is targeted more at America, his former ally.
We do want a partnership with the United States of America. But that partnership must bring peace to Afghanistan, must bring security to Afghanistan. It must ensure and strengthen the unity of the Afghan people. The partnership agreement has been signed for 2 years now. We are much more insecure. There is much more trouble in the country. Many more Afghans have died.
His discord with America is reflected by a notable absence in his impressive collection of photographs with heads of state.
But where is Barack Obama? We don't see him.
He is somewhere.
Really?
Somewhere in the library, somewhere.
Some analysts believe that the former president is planning his political return. He denies it.
No, I'm not in politics. I will not return to power. No, never.
Truth is, he cannot, not as long as America has influence in Afghanistan. The United States is an inconvenient but important ally of the Afghan authorities. The Taliban have refused to open dialogue with the government until the 8,400 American troops who remain leave Afghanistan. For them, the American influence over the current government is simply unacceptable.
America installed this government. It is a puppet. Those ministers, cabinet and parliament members, they cannot go outside from Kabul city. Even they cannot walk in Kabul city. It means there is Taliban in Kabul. If there is Taliban in capital of the country, so what about the rest area or the rest provinces?
Despite a looming security disaster, President Ashraf Ghani's spokesman prefers to speak of other important reforms.
In domestic policy, a very important area of our work is the fight against corruption. Before, some departments, including those that receive a lot of money like defence, were signing contracts in a non-transparent way. But now we have established a special office to fight against corruption.
The announcement of an anti-corruption bureau is perfectly timed. On October 5th, 70 nations will meet in Brussels to decide a financial aid package for the Afghan government. The aid, nearly 70% of the country's national budget, is often illegally diverted.
Well, for more on this story, let's bring in Michael Kugelman, Senior Program Associate for South Asia at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. Thanks very much for joining us here on France 24, Michael. Let's start with the deadline is here. We've not seen any reforms from the National Unity Government. What could happen next?
Well, it's really hard to say. It's a really dangerous situation. I mean, to its credit, the government has claimed that it's going to do certain things over the next few weeks. The President's office has said that a election law time schedule will be put in place. So it seems to be at least going through the motions of doing things. No one really knows what's going to happen. I imagine that the government will not fall in the next few days or the next few weeks, because very significantly, both President Ghani and Chief Executive Officer Abdullah have assured the country that the National Unity Government is meant to last for 5 years and not 2 years. So that suggests that everyone on board seems to agree that this is a government that's meant to last beyond the 2 years that the original founding agreement said it would. All the same, there are a lot of anti-government forces, including some pretty powerful people, that think this government is essentially illegitimate now, and that could lead to campaigns, could lead to protests, to put a lot of pressure on the government to step down.
And the US has an especially important stake in diffusing this crisis, doesn't it? Could you tell us a bit more?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the U.S. knows that this is a country that really is falling apart in many senses because the security situation is getting so bad, and if there were to be this unbelievable political crisis, the Afghan government and the military really would be in no position to address the Taliban insurgency. It would need to be focusing on immediate political survival issues and perhaps dealing with protests that could become violent. And the U.S. is at a time now with the Obama administration in its last few weeks where it doesn't want it to see Afghanistan really fall apart right when the Obama administration is completing its term. President Obama took ownership over the war in Afghanistan, and I think that we could see a situation of high-level U.S. officials starting to travel to Kabul if things start to get bad to try to negotiate some type of outcome to keep the government from falling. It's happened before. I mean, Secretary of State John Kerry was in Afghanistan 2 years ago to negotiate an outcome to a paralyzing election crisis, which of course led to the very National Unity Government, which is now imperiled.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all we have time for, Michael. But thank you very much once again for giving us your time here on France 24. Michael Kugelman from the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington.